Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of A Simple Fix. I am your host, Olivia. I am so happy that you are here. Jumping right into our highs and our lows. I'm pre recording this because I'll be just on my way back from Georgia visiting my family. And my high is that my little baby niece was born this week. Her name is Zoe, and she is perfect. She looks a lot like me. I'm just kidding. But our entire family will be together and we'll be celebrating this beautiful new life that has entered into the world. And it is one of my favorite things when all of us are able to be together. But that is most definitely my high. I had texted my mom a couple days ago. I was like, I think I'm in need of a mom hug. I feel like it's been a while and I'm just ready to be able to be with my family. We're staying at my brother's house and I'm sharing a bed with my sister. And my sister is so funny. She's like, the complete opposite when it comes to love languages. I am very much physical touch and she very much is not. And so I kept telling her that I am going to spoon her all night long, whether she likes it or not. And she's not stoked. But we always have just the best time together. And as far as my low goes, I think that me defrosting this spring has brought about a lot of awareness of my inconsistencies in life. And I think I am learning what consistency actually looks like. It might not look like going to the gym every single day, or it might not look like waking up and doing your affirmations every single day. I think the most important factor of consistency is intentionality, and I feel like I have been lacking that. And I think my low was just me being down in the dumps for actually being aware of that and recognizing that in my life. But I have the opportunity to be able to put the work into doing that. So I think I'm just going to reevaluate the way that I look at consistency and really what my goals are in my physical health and my emotional health so that I can better care for myself. Jumping right into today's episode, I'm calling it It's Giving Big Sister because I have noticed a lot of messages and comments on my TikToks, especially of people being like, you're like the big sister I never had, or you're giving the advice that like a big sister would give. And I love that because I'm the youngest in my family. So I am the baby through and through. Everybody knows it. But my mom always did say that I should have been born first because I'm just a bit bossy. I have a niece who is right in the thick of her teen years. And I was really thinking about what is it that I would tell her about the things that I have learned in my 26 years of life. And so I wrote down a list of 10 things that I would tell either the younger version of myself or 10 things that I would tell any woman that is coming out of their teen years, going to college, and is embarking on the journey of adult life. Number one, your timeline will not matter in the future. Don't let it dictate your life. And I had been talking to my mom about this a while ago. It was right after my breakup happened, and I had felt this pressure, this feeling of I'm 26, I should be getting married soon. I need to start thinking about what it'll look like if I have kids and all of my friends are pregnant, all of my friends are married. What am I doing? And my mom reminded me of how I just about lost my ever loving mind because I had to wait 6 months after my birthday to get my driver's license. Everybody else had gotten their licenses in Colorado, which was just a very different process. So my parents had no clue, and we went and realized that I had to have a permit for 6 months. And I just remember being devastated because everybody in my grade was getting their license and they were all getting cars and being able to drive around. And like for the next 6 months, my parents would have to drive me everywhere. And now I look back and I'm like, dang, I wish my parents would still drive me everywhere. The reality is, it made zero difference in my life in the grand scheme of things. And the only reason that it made a difference in the first place when I was 16 was because it was a comparison game that I was playing. And If we're going to allow comparison to dictate our every single decision and our every single move, we are going to be so unsatisfied and so miserable in life. The goalpost will always be moving, and we will never be able to achieve what it is that we desire, which is contentment and happiness and joy in life. So I remind myself of that all the time, that it really didn't make a difference that I got my license 6 months later than everybody else did. And it's not going to matter if I get married at 32 rather than 26, especially if you marry the wrong person just because you have the opportunity to do. Probably means that you're going to be divorced at 32 and starting all over again. So I'd rather not make that mistake, and I'm willing to be patient. Number 2, kindness is your greatest superpower. Use it. I have considered myself to be a pretty kind person. I feel like kindness is not something necessarily that should be earned by people. I look at it in the light of innocent until proven guilty. You are kind to people until they have proven to you that you should not be. And I think that the world looks at it the opposite very often. People always say kindness is free. I do feel like it does cost something to be kind to people. There are times when I want to be rude and when I want to say things that might set someone off a little bit. And it costs my ego. It costs occasionally my desire to be right or my desire to be heard. So I wouldn't say that kindness is free, but that's what makes it so powerful, is you have the power within yourself to extend something from the sacrifice of your own desires and your own poor attitude or whatever it may be. And I give the example of I had gone to a yoga class and I was with someone and we were talking right before the hot yoga class, and the lady next to me shushed us. And I just remember like my blood boiling. I'm like, I am a grown adult. You just shushed me? Are you serious? And the person I was with looked at me too and was like, oh, this is not gonna fly. And I was brewing half of the class, truly. Finally, halfway through, I was like, I have the choice to let this go, but it's gonna take something. And so at the end of the class, before we all walked out, the person I was with walked away, and I looked at the woman next to me and I said, your practice is beautiful, and I really appreciate being able to practice next to you. And this woman starts crying. She was an instructor, actually, and it was one of her last classes that she was going to be taking before she moved. And she gave me a big sweaty hug because it was hot yoga and told me how grateful she was to have heard that. I walked away beaming as if nothing even happened earlier. And she had every right to shush me. I was probably being a little loud. And I took a moment to have gratitude and to have kindness rather than to be bitter and annoyed that somebody brushed up against my sensitive ego. Although maybe her day was made, my day was made in the end, to be able to see how one small act of kindness can make all the difference in the world. And when I got in the car, the person I was with started ranting about it, and I just stopped them. I was like, I'm over it. It's no big deal. Let's move on. And we moved on. All that to say that kindness is the greatest superpower, because not only is it something that will impact the person that you extend it to, but it affects you in the midst of it as well. And there's just nothing like it. Number 3 is pray for that best friend if you haven't found her yet. And be okay with your friendships changing. I will forever remember me begging God, literally begging God to give me a best friend that I could have for life. It was the summer of 8th grade. And I remember writing it in my journal. I remember being like, I will find my lifelong friend this year. Out of nowhere, it feels like I met my best friend, Ansley, and we have been friends since the summer of 8th grade. We have lived so much life. She's gotten married, she's pregnant. I'm going to her baby shower this weekend, and it has been evidence that whoever it is, whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, cares about our desires. And the fact that I was able to make a friend like hers and maintain this friendship over a decade plus, it's the greatest thing in the world. And alongside that is the fact that we are not in 8th grade anymore and that we have different life circumstances. We live on opposite sides of the country. We play phone tag all the time. But one thing remains true is us growing old together. And I see that with a few of my friends that I have. And I think it's because we really do understand and recognize that the dynamics of friendship will change and it ebbs and flows. And we have to be okay with it not looking like sleepovers and homework date nights forever. And now one day there's going to be kids and husbands and mortgages. It will impact how friendship operates and how it looks, but it won't ever impact what it is. But I really think that your platonic relationships with people can be one of the most fulfilling things. These are the people who are closest to you shape you. And you don't want to let that happen from just anyone. Number 4, you cannot get pregnant every single day of the month. And your hormones are truly a blueprint for your health. I could make an entire podcast episode about this, but I was too old when I found out that our body has 4 phases within its cycle, and that in your fertile window, which is really only 5 to 6 days out of the entire month, is when you have the opportunity to get pregnant. Also, side note, Plan B does not work after ovulation. So don't waste $40 on that if you've already ovulated. I think that my mind was at ease once I understood how my body operated and how my body functions. I use natural cycles as a form of fertility awareness. I am very much someone who tries to track her hormones and tries to track her cycle. It's very regular, and I know exactly when I will be ovulating. I know the signs of my body. I know everything about it, like the back of my hand. And because of that, because I have that knowledge and that understanding, I know I'm not going to get pregnant just out of nowhere. And also because abstinence is my birth control of choice right now. But I have the knowledge to know that I'm not going to have to run out and get Plan B if something were to happen, because I'm responsible and I understand the inner workings of a menstrual cycle. And for your hormones, for example, your hormones, your gut health, your immune system, all completely intertwined. It seems as though when your hormones are out of whack, everything is out of whack. I know for me that I have an excess amount of estrogen, not enough progesterone, and way too much cortisol. So I have really bad cramps. I've got really bad digestive issues. I have a pretty wacky immune system. I have other autoimmune issues due to things that link back to my hormones and my gut health. And when you're able to balance out those hormones, and not just your sex hormones, your body is able to operate in a much more optimized state. A book that I really recommend people read is called Period Power. That was one of the most helpful books for me to better understand what my body does, why it does it, and how I can take care of it through each and every one of its phases. Also, I believe it's called In the Flow. That is another book that is really helpful, and it gives some really good practical guidance on your hormones and understanding when you cannot get pregnant. Number 5, who you marry can be an easy choice, but it also is the most important one you will ever make. My brother told me this. It's really easy when we're lonely and when we see everybody else have a companion, everybody else has somebody but me. We lose sight of the bigger picture. We lose sight of the fact that we would spend the rest of our lives with this person. And we make hasty decisions because of our hunger for companionship. And that's a dangerous thing. I think about past relationships that I had, and I realize these people weren't my friends. These people didn't want to put the work into a relationship that hadn't even lasted a year. What do we expect in 50? And I think about my mom and my dad, and they've been married for, hold on, let me do the math, 44 years? 44 years. And they've been through it, but they're best friends. My dad wakes up in the morning with my mom and just listens to her talk, makes her some coffee, and they just sit at 5:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, and they just sit and talk. And my dad just asks her questions and gets to know her. Like, in my mind, the guys that I've dated are like, I feel like I already know everything about you. How would that last if people aren't hungry to know and understand you? Who you end up with changes the course of your entire life. That could be for the better, or that could very easily be for the worst if we don't understand the importance of it. And I think about the opportunities of people that I've dated in the past that were like, yeah, we could get married. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because I now have the opportunity to marry somebody who is my truest friend, who respects me and desires to know every little thing about me. And no relationship is perfect. There are always going to be issues and there are always going to be things. But that, I think, is why people say to marry your best friend. Because if there is an ability of joy and laughter and being able to find comfort in your relationship, you're much more likely to be able to get through those hard things than you are with the person who is just there. Number 6, financial literacy is sexy. A lot of us, especially Gen Zers and millennials, we are experiencing the fallout and the impact of post-2008 recession trauma. And if we think about it, our parents probably passed down some financial fears also. And it's generation after generation of financial trauma and anxiety. We have the opportunity to relearn. And that is what I have found myself doing. I've recognized like my poor habits when it comes to finances is not just because I don't know the ins and outs of investing, but because I have a deep-seated fear of money and the lack of it. And I think one of the best ways to be able to combat that is to become financially literate and to understand the importance of a budget, to understand the importance of a high yield savings account, to understand the impact of a retirement account and how you have to invest the money that you put into it. Because if you don't, it is going to just sit there and collect dust. So this is your reminder to look at your 401k or your Roth IRA, invest the money that's in it. But there are so many resources out there, and I'm far from being a finance expert, but it is something that I wish I would have taken more time and care to learn about before I lived on my own and was responsible for myself financially. Number 7, learn how to, quote unquote, decenter men, family, marriage, fill in the blank from your life. As women, we have been conditioned to believe that the pinnacle of our lives is surrounded by our male partner, the family that we will create with them, the marriage that we will have. So many stories come out on a regular basis of the disappointment that they experienced after their wedding because they thought that it was the pinnacle of their lives. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this wedding and then realized that they really only wanted the wedding, not the marriage. They really wanted to check off this box that was glaring back at them in hopes that it would satisfy a part of you. And I have been finding so much contentment in my singleness and realizing that when the time comes, like I'll be ready and I will be there. But it is not going to be something that I move mountains for. There are so many more things that are of interest to me. I don't ever want to meet my future husband and get married and have kids and look back and regret that I didn't use my time wisely or that I really only just sat around and waited for them to come. I want to know that I was happy and content with life without them and that my cup is now just overflowing because they are the cherry on top and that they have added to my life in a beautiful way. I think it's a really tricky thing in a society that considers all of these things to be what you should do and the idea of happiness and joy and really success in life. Number 8, your body is the least interesting thing about you. Stop looking at the scale, stop counting calories, stop focusing on your imperfections, stop being afraid of your body changing. I think that last one really hits home for me because I'm 26, and although I probably weigh just about the same as I did in high school, things are different. And take this with a grain of salt because I'm 26. Like I still have plenty of time to age, but yeah, there are wrinkles and there are stretch marks and there are things that are sagging a little more. And all of a sudden I have these hips and it's different. And that is totally fine. I used to focus so much on the imperfections that I had and the things that I wanted to change. And I finally started speaking to them as if I truly appreciated them. And now I really do. I look at these imperfections and realize that it's what makes me. And if people are unhappy with my body changing or my imperfections, then that is a bummer for them because they're only looking at the surface of a person who has so much more depth than just their aesthetics. And I understand that is easy for me to say as a slim, able-bodied person, but that has been my only experience. But in the end, I think that the people who only care about your body and only compliment your body or only criticize your body don't have the privilege of knowing how great you are as a whole. Number 9, you can break the childhood version of yourself's heart. Crush their dreams. Stop living for outdated expectations. A great example of this, I wanted to be a vet when I was a kid. My aunt had worked at a vet clinic, and for some reason I was like, I'm going to be a vet. I am so glad I'm not a vet, but had I really hung on to that, really stuck to it, I'd be miserable. That is a very dramatic example, but that begs the question, what are expectations and things, whether it was from yourself or from your family or from the people, your peers, that you have been holding on to that you want to let go of? I think about a friend who loved doing jewelry and she started a jewelry business and everything, and everyone was so excited for her. And she just finally was like, I'm over it. And I was shocked, truly, when she told me that. She was like, yep, closing businesses, closing the doors, we're done, not really wanting to pursue this anymore. And in my mind, I was like, but you always wanted to. So you can change your mind. If you wanted to say you wanted to be a doctor on About Me Day in 3rd grade, you don't have to stick with that. And another example for me is I grew up singing, and it was always something people would say, Olivia, you need to go on to American Idol, or you're going to be the next whatever. And I didn't want a career of music. I love music. I love listening to music. I love singing in the shower and singing in the car. But I'd be happy if the only person that ever heard my voice again were my children. And that was a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. But just because you put time and energy into something, or because you have a talent, does not mean that it has to be your entire future. And it does not mean that you have to meet the expectations of what you said a decade ago or what other people have said about it. And if it is something that you want to pursue, it out of your own volition. Don't do it because you have to fulfill some sort of prophecy or satisfy the desires of the childhood version of you who picked their nose and ate it. If it's something that you love, do it because you love it. Don't do it because you feel like you have to. And number 10, the last one, which I personally think is the most important one. Do whatever it takes to learn how to love yourself. Become your own best friend. We are stuck with ourselves forever. And no amount of friends or family members or distractions will change that. And the quote that I have been living by so much is, learn to love being alone. That way you won't waste your time on any of the wrong things. This world is hard. Social media is hard. I can't imagine being 10 years younger right now, even 5 years younger, and growing up in the thick of all of this. I wish a lesson that I would have learned earlier on in life is how to really, truly advocate for myself. And in order to advocate for yourself, you have to understand your needs and your desires and understand your triggers. You have to know yourself better than you know anyone. And for a long time, I didn't feel like I knew myself very well. And it was because I didn't care to. It's because I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. It's because I didn't like the kind of person that I was presenting to the world. And so instead of me working on getting to know the true self, I decided to just push her in the corner and pretend like she didn't exist. And over these last few years of self-discovery and lessons in self-love, I am so proud of myself. I'm so happy with who I am as a person and as a friend, as a family member. There is so much to work on, but I'm doing it in love. Love is not just a feeling. It is an action. It is a choice. That is the same for self-love. And we have to choose to put that time and that energy into ourselves. And we have to take action in order to be able to truly be happy with ourselves. I've got quite a few other episodes about becoming your own best friend and learning how to be alone and enjoy your own company and find satisfaction. But from that will flow everything else. So don't skimp on it. That is all for today's episode. I hope that these 10 little pieces of advice were helpful. Please let me know what resonated with you and what message that you might have needed to hear today. If you like this podcast, be sure to follow it. You can subscribe as well on YouTube. Lots of fun things are coming up very soon regarding my YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Leave some feedback. I love hearing what you guys have to say. And I'm never afraid of constructive criticism either. And if you have any questions, want some resources, need a pep talk, I am here in my DMs. You can message me and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I love you guys, and I will talk to you next Monday.